time. I was gonna, and then, like, if any of you saw that before, I decided to delete it because it was super off topic. My lady called, so I thought it would be, yeah, sort of amusing, but it really wasn't. I thought it would be, whoa, oh my gosh. It is so sunny and bright out here, you guys. Holy crap. Like, oh my gosh. I don't even know what to say to that other than it's super sunny and bright. Oh my god. Yeah, see, with people who have sensory issues, this shit is really, like, baffling to them. And I can't see my phone now at all. But yeah, so I thought it would be kind of amusing to do a interview while I was live streaming, and then that way I didn't have to, like, end the live stream and do another one and then delete it and everything that I just wound up having to do. So I was like, oh, that would be really kind of amusing to do an interview while I'm live streaming, and then you guys can see how I handle that crap. It didn't turn out as funny as I thought it would, and I actually lost a viewer, obviously, because it wasn't amusing and it wasn't cool. But that's just how it is. We just fly by the seat of our pants. So that was us flying by the seat of our pants. Look at that. I am smoking on YouTube again. What do you know? Big shocker. Actually, I feel like I've cut down on that. And I do try really hard to, like, not smoke on YouTube, but I really don't care. Because everybody knows smoking is bad for you. We all got that covered, right? Like, smoking's bad for you. It's unhealthy. It gives you lung cancer and fucks up your breathing, so don't do it. Alright. Felt like I needed to throw that out there for some reason. But yeah, so I'm serious this time. I'm actually going live. And like I said, I kind of had to come outside because it is just gorgeous. And I mean, I'm flipping you guys around so you guys can kind of see the parks. I mean, look at that. We have so many parks around my house. Like, there's a park. Over there's a park. I'm walking around. Anyways, I'm probably going to go down to, like, what we call the Spinny Park because Lucas really wants to go and it's sunny and I've been telling him no. I feel like you guys should see this. I am walking around in my robe. Like, that is called no shame. No shame. Hey, one of my viewers came back. I actually can't see, I don't think. Let's see, show live chat messages. Yes, that is what we want to do. And you're not doing it. It's not doing it. Oh, there we go. Hi! Oh, okay, so I thought your phone battery died. Okay, that makes me feel way, way better because I thought you left because my interview was boring. It seemed really boring to me. Like, I thought it would be amusing, and it wasn't. So I'm glad it was just your phone battery dying. My interview went really well for a 6-week-old, which is amazing. I love little babies so much. I love them. But I have more than likely a shift this Saturday watching it. So, and that I hope that the Saturday schedule works. Oh my gosh, it's almost too hot for my robe, you guys. But yeah, I hope that the shift she's wanting me to do on Saturday works out with, like, she has to check with her hubby. I hope people think I'm, like, FaceTiming or something because I'm walking around. There's actually a lot of people out. But, like, she has to check with her hubby on as far as the date. But we're thinking this Saturday between, like, 3 and 5:30, which would work out perfectly for me because she's in a town, Lako, and I have another shift that starts at 6 right by Lako. Like, I could be from her house to my next shift in 10 minutes. So I'm really hoping that time works out well for her because it would work out amazing for me. But yeah, so I basically got the job and I'm super stoked and want to do a happy dance right now, but I'm not going to because of my back. But, like, I have a bulging disc in my back still, so I'm going to refrain from the happy dance I want to do right now. But yeah, so my interview went really well, and I'm really sorry that I had to end the live stream, but I figured it was probably best to just do one thing at a time. Yay, thank you. I'm really happy, and thank you for saying congratulations, because I'm a little weird. I have a weird quirk. I like people to congratulate me when I get a job. Um, not like I don't expect a lot of praise, but basically, like, I like my sister and my hubby to congratulate me, because I don't know. I'm like, Kucha, I don't know. I'm probably gonna butcher your username, and I'm terribly sorry. I don't actually know how to pronounce it. Is it Nachi? Um, I really hope I didn't butcher that too bad. But I don't know if you have like any mental health issues or anything, because you just subscribed, and I haven't quite gotten to like checking out your channel or anything yet, because it was really late when I saw it last night. Which I do plan to do. I have a weird policy when it comes to my YouTube channel. Basically, if you subscribe to me, I subscribe back. It's just a policy. It's like internet politeness, in my opinion. But anyways, I haven't checked out your videos, so I don't know if like you have any mental health issues. I'm assuming that if you're watching my channel, you do, or an interest in it, because that's just day-to-day crap. It's pretty stinking hard. Like, it's difficult, if you get what I'm saying. So, like, to do an interview is really stressful for me, and I kind of brush it off, but it turns into like a bunch of stuttering, which I did, and it was really like, to me, it was like, oh my god, I stuttered. She's gonna notice, and then I'm not gonna get the job because I stuttered, and like she was gonna think I was stupid. So like, interview is really hard. Oh my gosh, you guys, I found shade. Can you guys see me okay? Because I found shade, and moron, I came out here in my robe. So, which is fine. I don't care what I look like. I care that my robe is fuzzy. I can see my phone screen. But yeah, so an interview really and provoking and everything. Normally my fiance about this part of my connection got crappy, but so anyways, I think anything I did was amazing or awesome, but it's more that doing an interview is. But yeah, so yeah, the interviews are really. Thank you for congratulating me. I appreciate it. It means a lot, believe it or not. So I can quit ranting about how much that means, because obviously you get it. And so I'll just quit rambling on about that. But that's cool. Jacqueline's awesome. I absolutely love her. Oh, okay. So issues, and so Jacqueline Singh, I love her so much, and applaud her, and anyone else that happens to be watching this or sees this after it's uploaded, go over and subscribe to Jacqueline Has Iman, because she's absolutely amazing, and I love her so much, and she's one of the reasons I continue to do YouTube videos, so she's awesome. Anyways, so I wanted to talk a little bit, since a bunch of my videos have lately been covering anorexia and eating disorders and how we're doing with that. I felt like it was only like logical that I did a video on the warning signs and symptoms of that, because like my channel wasn't originally supposed to just be about our life. It was also supposed to raise awareness for mental health and what that's like and whatnot, and I feel like that's important. So, and coming from somebody who has an eating disorder and suffers from anorexia, I think it means a little bit more, and maybe that's just all in my head, but I think it means a little bit more, because it's not just some textbook or some website on the internet telling you something. It's coming from a person who has anorexia. So, I think I'm going to stop right here for a little bit, rest, because my internet seems to be pretty good. Yeah? Yeah? Good internet? Alright. So, one of the signs is obviously, I'm not even gonna, you know what, I'm gonna sit here and go against the grain and go against a bunch of textbooks and the DMV-5 and the oh my gosh, it's the DSM-4 and the DSM-5. I'm gonna go against that. Alright, sweet, I'm glad I found a good spot. These people probably think I'm crazy, because I don't know if you can see this. I'm on a sidewalk between two houses. Like, there's and like a house there. So they're like, what is this person doing? I'm stealing your internet. That's what I'm doing. Because I'm doing YouTube and they need good internet. So I quit loading. But yeah, I'm going to go against the DSM for a minute. Although it is true, I disagree with it strongly because I feel like this puts added impact on a stigma that I fucking hate. I hate it. So yes, one of the warning signs or like kind of symptoms of anorexia is a low body weight. Yes, that is true. It does happen. It's a thing. But I don't agree with that being one of the warning signs. Because anyone who sees me, obviously I'm not fucking skin and bone. I'm not. I'm not saying I'm fat. I'm just saying I'm not skin and bone. I'm not like those stupid thinspo things that you see with emaciated people with their bones sticking out everywhere. And I think that's a major stigma and misunderstanding when it comes to anorexia. Like, they don't there's not enough awareness that you can be a perfectly healthy weight or even overweight and still have anorexia. It happens a lot more often than people care to bring attention to. So I'm not going to touch on that too much. Yes, a low weight is obviously if you're freaking 80 pounds and you don't eat, there you go, there's a warning sign. And that's about all I want to touch on that as far as weight goes, because I don't feel like weight is such an impacting factor when it comes to anorexia. I mean, it is, but it isn't. Alright, so we're running lost internet, so I'm going to move until I find internet. It, like, connected, and I hadn't moved, so whatever. But yeah, I looked in the DSM-5 a couple months back, and they did remove one criteria. I thank them for. I really thank the American Psychiatric Association, because it's stupid. Like, men can have anorexia. If you are a dude, you can have an eating disorder. I'm just going to throw it out there. Sorry. Get rid of all your stigmas and assumptions that only women have an eating disorder. Bull crap. Men get it just as bad as women do. And I think men or boys or whatever, males with anorexia or bulimia, have it 10 times worse because the stupid stigma. Like, you see a thin male and you assume they're just thin. Like, you just assume, like, oh, they're tall and lanky and that's just how they're built. You see a skinny woman and you automatically assume they have an eating disorder. So I think people see it and catch it a lot less in men than they do women because of the stigma. So if you're a dude, you can totally have an eating disorder, and there's no shame in that. It happens just as much in men as it does women. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. But one of the requirements to technically be diagnosed with anorexia, according to the DSM, was that you had a loss of your menstrual cycle. Men never had one to begin with, so how the hell are they supposed to lose it? And a lot of women, a lot of girls I know, yeah, that happened. Fortunately, one of the requirements is and I don't know how many of you know how the DSM-4 or the DSM-5 works, but it's basically a 4 out of 5 system. So you can have a normal weight, but meet all the other fucking criteria, boom, you have anorexia. If you only meet, say there's 6 symptoms or 6 requirements, and you only meet 2 of them, then you're usually diagnosed with something called an EDNOS, which is eating disorder not otherwise specified. Meaning you show signs and traits of an eating disorder, you just don't fit the mold for anorexia, bulimia, or binge eating disorder. It doesn't fit perfectly. So, yes. But see, a lot of people didn't know that, like you said, is they thought if you weren't underweight, you weren't anorexic. Bull crap. I'm calling bullshit. I'm calling it out right here, right now. I have been diagnosed with anorexia nervosa since I was 13, and my weight, part of me doesn't even want to say it because like my eating disorders, like, don't you dare, it's disgusting, but it's not, it's normal. I have had a weight range anywhere from, my lowest was about 94 pounds. I was the same height I am now, so I'm 5'4", and my lowest was approximately 94 pounds, and my highest was 150. At 150 pounds, I was still diagnosed with anorexia. Like, I still met the requirements because I still fell into all the other molds. Like, I still had all the other symptoms and all the other behaviors. And so according to the DSM, which I think people put way too much weight in that book anyways, like, it doesn't matter. Like I said, I've had my weight very greatly, and I still was diagnosed with an eating. You do not have to be super skinny to have an eating disorder. I've had friends that were clinically obese, like fell on obese, were sitting there screaming to professionals that they had a problem, like they had problems with food and they weren't eating, and they weren't, like, this girl was eating 100 calories a day and exercising for 6 hours to burn off the 100 calories she ate, and doctors were like, no, you don't have a problem, you're overweight. Or I had one professional sit there and tell her it was a good thing because she needed to lose weight. So unfortunately, she did not get help soon enough. She didn't get the help she deserved and needed desperately soon enough because of where she started at. And I think that's a big determining factor, is if you start at an overweight or normal weight point, people are going to catch on a lot slower than if you start at like someone who's already on the relatively thin side. And it's just a numbers game. Obviously, if you start out at 120, you're going to hit a lot, like 90 pounds, a lot faster than somebody at 160, starting at 160 pounds. So don't put too much weight. Like I said, I don't want to talk about that too much because I think it's bull and doesn't really matter too much. But so guys, just don't put a lot of weight into your weight. It's not a big thing. So yeah, that's one of the warning signs. I think people get scared to be concerned about people because there is a very fine line between what is just a normal person wanting to lose a few pounds and whatnot, or tone up because it's summer or whatever reason, and when it becomes an eating disorder. Here's my thing from lots and lots of time and years spent in treatment and mental health and counseling and having an eating disorder. Here's what I've taken away from all this. What you are going through, the symptoms and the thoughts and the feelings you are having, and the behaviors you are engaging, basically, here's your line. If you go from having a happy life, or your normal life, your normal routine, where you're comfortable, you're happy, you're just doing your thing, and you just want to lose a few pounds, but it doesn't interfere with your life, like, you're just going to cut out junk food or whatever, but if your friends are all having ice cream, you can still, like, sit there and have an ice cream cone. Yeah, you're good. That's dieting. No problem. However, at the point when it starts to take over your life and it starts to become your main focus, then you have a problem. Like, to simplify that whole when is it dieting and when is it eating disorder, there's your line. Like, putting it point blank simply, that's one of the main things, is it becomes an obsession. It's not just a minor part of your life, it is your life. So if you're sitting there and that's all you can think about, and you can't focus in class because you're worried about, like, whatever, then yeah, it's a warning sign. If you become obsessed with it, that's one of the warning signs, is when it switches from just a normal part of your life to an obsession. Like, that's a really good question. Like, I don't know if you guys saw that, but he asked what I thought was the best approach. Definitely, I think the best way to answer that while I gather my thoughts, because I have so many different opinions on that, is to start with what not to do. You definitely, what people, and this is a big misunderstanding that a lot of people don't understand, and it hasn't had a lot of attention brought to it, is believe it or not, anorexia in and of itself is not about your weight. It's got nothing to do with food. It's got nothing to do with how much you weigh or what you look like. It's just, that's a side effect of it. What anorexia is really about is an attempt for somebody who has it, emotions or their thoughts or a mental health thing going on or school or whatever. It's a control disorder, which is weird because all the things have to do with food. But what are they doing with food? They're controlling it, right? So because it's a disorder that's based very firmly in having control and gaining control, one thing you do not want to do is go in and try to control that person, because their eating disorder is gonna fight back, and it's gonna fight back with a vengeance. So basically, what I'm saying is, you don't want to take a person with anorexia, or that someone you think might have anorexia or any other kind of eating disorder, and basically sit them in, like, speaking from personal experience, when I first got very, very, very sick in my eating disorder, my grandparents were my guardians, and I was about 15, and they did not understand anorexia at all. I mean, it just was something they didn't talk about in their generation, so they just genuinely didn't know. So they thought the best thing to do was to sit me down at the kitchen table, put a plate of food in front of me, and at the time it was a couple items of food that I had not eaten in months, let alone thought about eating. And they thought the best thing to do was sit me down in front of this plate of food and stare at me until I ate it. They would not let me get up from the table until I ate. Well, lo and behold, after said incidents, my symptoms and everything got way worse after that, because I felt like they were trying to control me. So you don't want to sit there and try and force them, because when you're coming from other people, like, other people see it as they can just eat. Like, that's one of the things my grandparents and friends that kept telling me to do was, well, just eat. Well, a person with anorexia, they can't just eat. It doesn't that way. So one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to push them to something they don't want to do, unfortunately. It sucks. I know that's your instinct. And I can really understand where that's coming from, because even though I have anorexia, I've had friends that have it, and I still have the urge to tell them, like, you just need to eat. So don't try and control them, because it's going to make their eating disorders worse in the long run, unfortunately. So one of the best things you can do is be there for them, and not just with their anorexia. Obviously, that's like a big one, like, be there for them in their eating disorder. I keep talking. I'm gonna have you look up there for a minute while I light my smoke. Sorry about that. I keep talking and my smoke keeps, like, going out. But, so obviously be there for them in their eating disorder, whether anorexia, bulimia, whatever it may be. But be there for them in other ways. Like, obviously, if they're showing signs of anorexia, there's something going on that's really stressing them out or upsetting to them in their life. And they need to know they have somebody, you know, like, because anorexics, a lot of the time, they feel alone, and they feel like a burden, and they feel like no one wants to hear it anymore. So as much as you can emotionally handle, be there for them. Let them know, like, hey, whatever's going on, you're not going anywhere. You're going to be there, and they're not going to scare you off. It's something I wish very badly that my friends would have done for me. I wish very much so that I had one friend that would have just sat there and said, all right, we're here. We don't get it. We don't understand. We don't know what the right thing to say is, but we're here. So I think that's one of the main things you can do for somebody, is just be there. You know what I mean? Like, just be there is main things. And it depends on your friend too, like, or loved one or sister, or whoever you may be with or thinking may have an eating disorder. Because if, like, with me, I'm a very straightforward person. I'm gonna tell you how it is. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it or bullshit. So if you have a friend that's kind of like that, like, prefers people to just come right out and say it, then come right out and say it. Sit them down and say, hey, you know, I'm really worried about you. I don't know, you've lost a lot of weight, or you don't seem to be eating as much. Is there something going on? Like, just if you have a friend that likes you to be straightforward, then be straightforward with them. Just bring it up. And that may be a good way for them to feel like it's okay for them to talk about. Because I know when I was super sick, I didn't think it was an okay thing to talk about, that I had to keep it to myself. So definitely, if they're straightforward, then bring it up. If not, maybe if they're not so open and straightforward, do a little investigating on your own. Keep a closer eye on them, Like, because for a while people thought my sister had an eating disorder, and it was really concerning for me because I know the hell that can become and how quickly it can go downhill. But my sister's not straightforward. She's anything but. So I had to sit there and do a little investigating and kind of keep an eye on her very discreetly, not like stare at her, because then that's weird and uncomfortable. But, just kind of watch her for a while. And I realized it wasn't so much an eating disorder. It was just she just had 2 kids and didn't have time to eat. And she was stressing out and just lost a bunch of weight because she didn't have time. She wasn't putting herself first. So basically, to wrap up that thought, if you have a friend that's not really straightforward, maybe just keep an eye on them. If you see that, they definitely do have many of the markers for anorexia, and I'll get into that here in a minute about like when you should be concerned, then maybe bring it up to someone else in the family, get a second opinion, and whatnot. So those are my main 2 things without getting into when you should be concerned. So kind of wrapping my head back to being on topic a little bit is like, so obviously a low weight is one of the warning signs, and it becoming an obsession for them where that's all they can think about, that's a warning sign. Like, if it's an obsession where that's all they can focus on and whatnot, that's definitely one of the warning signs. I'm gonna go against the books here again, but this is coming from an anorexic, so I can tell you. And I've met with a lot of girls who have eating disorders, so it's also coming from what they've told me and what I know about other people who suffer from it. One of the things that you're gonna read online if you go, like, on the internet to research this, or, like, check out a book from the library. Sorry, guys, I'm starting to get a really bad, like, it's really bright and it's starting to make my eyeballs hurt, so I'm squinting and stuff. But they'll sit there and say that an anorexic would start making comments like, oh, I'm so fat, or like, do you think I'm fat? Anorexics don't do that. Thank you, because I feel like I was rambling and not making very much sense, so I'm glad you think I'm really good at explaining it, because I felt like I was kind of making that more confusing. But yeah, so a person with anorexia is not going to come out and be like, I'm so fat. Like, I'm not going to sit next to you and be like, God, I feel fat today, and have you be like, no, you're not fat. No, it just doesn't happen that way. Only because the way anorexia works, anorexia is a disorder based very strongly in secrecy. It's kind of a secret, like, hide behind in your bedroom away from the world, and like, sorry, I'm gonna have to swipe your face because my phone just went off. 1 second. Oh crap, I hope I didn't hit that button. 1 second. Oh, okay, my hubby's home, but that's fine. I don't really care. I do what I want. So yeah, they're not gonna come out and say they're fat because it's a secret disorder. They don't want anyone to know, because there's this thing called an ana voice, or an eating disorder voice, and it's basically this little voice in your head that tells you a bunch of bullshit. And one of the things that's bullshit that your eating disorder is going to tell you, or a thought in your head, or a voice you're gonna hear, is that if you tell people, they are going to try and stop you. True fact, they will. If you tell people the shit you're doing, somebody is going to try and stop you. That's not bullshit. That's completely true. That's gonna happen. but it's going to tell you that they're going to try and stop you, and then that will make the world come to an end, essentially. Like, that is the worst thing, that whatever you do, you have to keep it a secret so no one tries to stop you. Please, if you think you have an eating disorder, ignore that voice. I know it's really hard and it's awful and it's scary and it makes you feel like you're gonna die. But yeah, if you tell people I'm not gonna bullshit you, someone's going to try to stop you. They're gonna try and intervene. They're gonna try and get you to understand that it's unhealthy, but that's not gonna make the world fall to pieces. It's gonna be a healthy thing and it's gonna be better for you. So the part that's bullshit is your eating disorder telling you that it's going to make the world fall to pieces. So, yeah, don't expect someone you think might have a problem with eating to come out and be like, I'm so fat, or like, I look bad today. Because their eating disorder is not going to let them do that, because they know, like I knew when I was sick, that if I sat there and told my grandparents I was worried about that I didn't want to eat something because it was too fattening or had too many calories or something, then that would bring suspicion on me, and that people would get worried, and then they might figure out that I had a problem and they might try to stop me. So don't be looking for people doing that, because they won't. It just won't happen like that. However, if you, like, one of the warning signs is avoiding that stuff. And an anorexic will discreetly tell you they think they're fat in weird ways. They're not going to come out right straightforward and say that, but they're going to show you in other ways. Like, I became obsessed with looking in the mirror. Like, anytime I like walked by a window or walked past a mirror, I would have to check. I would have to do body checks. So I'd sit there and I'd like feel my collarbone and I'd like poke at my face and stuff. And I'd spend an unholy amount of time in front of a mirror because I was worried that I looked fat. So that's kind of a, like, you know what I mean? Or if you see a friend, like you're out at the mall and your friend's buying clothes that you know won't fit them, like that was the really frustrating thing for me when I was really sick with my eating disorder. Was in reality I fit a size 3 to 4. So I was really relatively small, but when I went into the store, I thought those clothes were going to be too small, that I was too fat and I was too big. So I'd intentionally buy pants that were too big because I'd buy, say, a size 8 because I thought I was that fat. And like, obviously my sister knew those pants weren't going to fit me because she could see me in a clear state. Like, you know, she didn't see what I saw when I looked in the mirror. She saw the skinny girl that I was, but I didn't see that, so I didn't believe I could sit there and fit into clothes that fit. So there's little discreet things like that that they will kind of tell you that they think they're bigger than they are. So definitely look out for, you know, one of the things. And I've seen people with eating disorders go both ways on this. I'm going to go on the major side. Like, the most common thing is baggy clothing. If you have somebody like a friend or whatever, whoever, I'm just going to say friend because that's just what my mouth keeps wanting to say. But if you have a friend who normally wears clothes that fit right and they fit them well and whatnot, and all of a sudden they start wearing sweats and baggy clothes, it might be a sign that they have an eating disorder. Like, that's something we do because we think that clothes that are smaller won't fit because we're fat, and it also might be that we don't want people. It's also a way to hide weight loss. In fact, if you Google how to hide weight loss, that's going to be one of the things that comes up first, is to wear baggy clothing, because then people really don't know how big or small or just right you are because you're wearing loose clothing. It's hard to tell. So a lot of anorexics will start wearing loose clothing, partly because they think they're fat and small clothes won't fit, partly because they're trying to hide the weight they have lost, and also partly because it's a self-conscious thing. They think they look bad in clothes that fit, so they wear baggy clothing so that they're a little less self-conscious. So that's definitely one of them. Obviously, one of the things that a lot of anorexics will sit there and tell you that, like, I don't do that, and they do that, but they will tell you do that, is weird eating habits. Like, For me, I had a lot of friends who would not eat unless someone else was in front of them. Like they had to eat in the company of others. Because, and this is true, it's a thinking error, like it's a incorrect thought, but it's true. So it's a weird thing. But basically they would only eat when someone else was around, because say they would only eat in front of their parents, because then their parents would see them eat and assume that they were eating the rest of the day. But then they wouldn't. Like, they wouldn't eat breakfast or lunch, but they would only eat dinner at home with their parents when their parents were watching, because then their parents would see them eating and assume that they were also eating at school and stuff when they weren't. So, if you notice that, like, they're not eating when they're alone, that might be a sign. But another thing is that's more common than eating in front of people is a lot of times anorexics won't eat in front of people. That is more common than eating in front of people all the time. Because we feel an immense amount of guilt for eating. Like, obviously anorexia is based on reducing your calories and restricting what you eat. So we feel guilty for even the smallest amount. Like, I remember I had a staff, I was in a treatment center, and I'd been sent to the hospital, and they basically told me, like, here's a small little thing. It was like this big. And they's like, here's this small thing of orange juice. If you can drink that thing of orange juice, we'll send you home. Because I was medically stable. I was very sick, but medically stable. So here's the deal. Drink the orange juice, you go home. You don't, you stay. And I had a staff member staying in the room with me, and I couldn't do it. Like, I knew how sick I was. I knew that orange juice was more than likely going to save my life and keep me going for another 3 days. But I couldn't do it because there was someone else in the room, and I felt guilty for drinking a thing this big of orange juice, and I felt like I didn't deserve it. So I waited until my staff member had left the room to drink the orange juice. So if you see a friend avoiding food situations, avoiding eating around other people, like they used to go out to eat with you all the time and suddenly they're turning down your requests, it's a pretty good indicator there's something amiss there. No, and I'm not saying that they for sure definitely then have an eating disorder, but it's a good indicator that something's amiss. Like, if they suddenly change routines like that, it's a good idea that something's wrong. And one thing I used to do was I had to eat my food in a certain order, and I became really, really obsessed with patterns. So I had to have 4 sections on my plate, and I had to chew my food 4 times, 10 times in a row. So sets of 4, 10 times, so 40 times, which is an unholy amount of time to be chewing your food, people. That's not normal. I'm just going to come out and say it, and that's not right. You should not be chewing one piece of food. I tell you, it took me forever to finish a meal because I had to chew shit 40 times. Look it up on the internet, you'll see it, it's accurate. And it doesn't always have to be like cutting their food into small pieces or anything. Just any weird new food ritual. Like, one of the big things that most people don't do that is a really good indicator is anorexics have a trick, as you know, or may not know, but as is fairly common knowledge now. Your stomach is not as big as we think it is, and it takes your brain a while to recognize the hunger, like the full signals that your stomach is sending to your brain. That takes a minute. So it's not like a direct link in the sense that if you have OCD, you're going to develop anorexia, or if you have anorexia, you have OCD. There's not a link like that, but like, it's not set in stone, cut and dry. But what they have found, and what I've seen throughout my experience, and what researchers and mental health professionals have found, is that a lot of people with anorexics and with anorexia do in fact have OCD, and vice versa. It is a really common thing that someone with OCD could very easily develop anorexia, because OCD, like anorexia, is a control disorder. It's based out of a different thing. Like, it's based different. It has a different foundation. OCD is more based out of they fear something's going to happen. So they feel out of control, like a plane. They are afraid a plane is going to fall from the sky. Sorry for the stereotypical example, but that's all I can think of right now. So someone with OCD becomes very afraid that a plane will fall from the sky. So then they start engaging in these compulsions, such as washing their hands 20 times, just to keep a plane from, because they think they can control that plane, that so long as they engage in these behaviors, the plane won't fall and no one will die. So they think they can control it and they can't. But that's the nature of the disorder, whereas anorexia is still controlling things, but it's more controlling stressful events going on in their life. So it's two different foundations, kind of the same thing, if that makes sense though. And so it's not difficult for someone with OCD to slowly converge into anorexia, and it's not difficult for someone with anorexia to become OCD, because of the thinking errors involved in it. And I've said that word like 10 times, so I'm thinking now I need to do a video on thinking errors, and my therapist's gonna laugh because I hate working on thinking errors. I hate it. But so there is a link. It's very easy for one to develop the other. However, I've known people with anorexia that do not have OCD. I think to make it make more sense, I've seen a lot more people with anorexia that are more in the same boat I am, whereas they have, instead of having full-blown OCD, they have OCD tendencies. So they have kind of like OCD, like anorexic OCD. That's a good term for it. I just made that up out of thin air, but that makes a lot of sense to me. Is they develop like anorexic OCD, because in OCD you are driven to do certain compulsions or behaviors because you think it's going to stop something from happening, and it makes your anxiety levels go down. In anorexia, you are driven to do certain behaviors because you think it's going to keep you from, it's going to make you not gain weight or help you lose weight, and therefore makes your anxieties go down. So basically, you develop anorexia-specific compulsions, if that makes sense. So in a way, there is a link between anorexia and OCD, in my opinion. Like, I would lay down at night and I would become very, very anxious, and I'd become very, very concerned and very worried about whether I would gain weight or not that day, and I would be driven / compelled to sit there and do a bunch of, like, 200 was my magic number. So I would be compelled or driven to sit up, get out of bed at like 2 in the morning. I'd be compelled to get up out of bed and do 200 crunches, because in my mind, if I did 200 crunches, I thought that would keep me from losing or gaining weight, which is bunchable. It won't make any difference. Like, it just won't. But I was compelled to do that because I decided in my head that if I did 200 crunches at 2 o'clock in the morning, I wouldn't gain weight, and then it made my anxiety feel better, and I wouldn't be as anxious, and I could go to bed. And it's the same thing with someone with OCD. You know, a person with OCD, if they reorganize their CDs or their books in alphabetical order, it makes them feel like something bad's not going to happen, and they are not anxious anymore, and then they go to bed and move on with their life in really vague things. So I think there is definitely a link between that. So yeah, anorexics tend to get like anorexic OCD tendencies, if that makes sense. Yeah, I feel like that kind of fried my brain a little bit. I don't really know how to explain everything going on in my head a little bit better than I just did, but does that help? Okay, good. I'm glad that made sense, because that kind of was an interesting question, and I'm glad you asked good questions. But yeah, so basically you've got your general warning signs like weird food habits and, you know, like losing weight and not eating in front of other people and stuff like that. I see I'm at 49 minutes, so for the sake of this is going to be uploaded to YouTube later, I think I'm going to wrap it up here in about 10-15 minutes, just because my hubby is home and probably wondering where the heck I'm at. And this sucks. I'm gonna have to take my robot. No, I'm not doing that. I'm just gonna leave it open like that. We're free balling. So I wanted to spend about 5-10 minutes kind of giving you some of the weird, kind of unknown quirks of an anorexic that you're not gonna find on the internet, because it's a weird, not so talked about, stigmatized thing. So one of the things is, like, as you can see, I'm outside in the sunshine. Hooray. This is a weird thing for me. This is something I never used to do. Because one of the qualities that is highly, like, admired by an anorexic is, as you know, if you are not getting the proper nutrients and you're malnourished and you're low on vitamins and stuff, your skin's gonna become really, really pale. Like, you're not gonna have the color in your cheeks and you're gonna be pale. And so based on that, anorexia kind of makes you really want to have pale, light, or fair skin, because it makes you feel like you're thinner than you are, and it's just part of the eating disorder messing with your head. So a weird quirk that anorexia can make people do is avoid the sunlight or use an unholy amount of sunscreen, either one. Like, I avoided going outside like the plague, because I convinced myself if I went out in the daylight, then the sun would hit my skin and I would get a tan and I wouldn't look pale anymore, and then I wouldn't look pretty. And that's really messed up, and it's just a thinking error, but that's what I thought in my head. So I would stay indoors all the time, and if I ever had to be outside in, like, nature, I would put on a bunch of sunscreen, and I religiously put it on every 2 hours, sometimes every hour, depending on how bad my anxiety was. And I would only use makeup that had sunscreen in it to try and prevent myself from tanning and getting darker. It's because most anorexics are pale to begin with, so it was stupid for me to do that anyways, because I was pale, but whatever. So they'll avoid being out in the sunlight. Like, an anorexic person with anorexia probably not going to want to go suntanning with you, because they want to look pale, because they think that means they're skinny and pretty and blah, 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 blah. All the other thinking disorders that go. It's one of them. If you have somebody who really used to like being outside and then now they're not, it might be whatnot. So that's one weird quirk. Another one that's not really talked about, it is somewhat known, but it's not talked about a lot, is fidgeting. Really weird thinking error, but anorexia convinces you that if you fidget, so like, you know, sitting there and clicking a pen or something, or bouncing your leg up and down, or whatever it may be, is going to help you burn calories. Let me tell you, there is a point in that. Like, eventually, yeah, you're going to burn more calories by fidgeting than just sitting still. However, it's really not going to get you very far, because in order to burn 1 calorie, you would have to sit there and fidget for over half an hour to burn, like, a calorie. I think they've done studies that say in people who fidget, they burn an extra, like, 50 calories an hour. So it's really not effective. Like, doing that's not going to help you lose weight. It's not going to make you any thinner. It's not really going to burn enough calories to make a difference. Just like, did you know when you pass gas or fart, you also lose, it burns about 10 calories every time you fart. That does not mean you should sit there and eat a bunch of burnt beans so you're farting all the time, because it's such a minuscule amount of calories that are burned that it's not going to benefit you. But anorexia is a stupid disorder that makes you not realize that, so they'll start fidgeting all the time. They'll feel like they have to be moving 24/7. They can't sit still. So they'll sit there and start bouncing their leg, clicking a pen, shaking the hand, whatever. So that's one of the other things that's kind of known, but not really. So that's one of the things. And yeah, so I'm going to basically just sum that up. So those are my 2 main ones that I can think of right now. Again, I have a headache, so my brain's not thinking, so I'll, basically, last point to drive home with anorexia warning signs is and I think this goes across the board, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, but I think across the board with any mental health issue, this applies to any kind of mental health issue. Any sudden change or like drastic change in behavior or schedule or routine or personality, there's your sign. As I have a famous comedian that I really like, and his punchline is always like, here's your sign. Well, if you've got someone who never used to wear a lot of sunscreen, or they never used to fidget very much, and all of a sudden they're fidgeting all the time, here's your sign. Like that could be very well be a sign. But I'm gonna go find my hubby because he texted me about 10-15 minutes ago. Thank you all very much for watching, and thank you Kuchnachi. Oh my god, I feel like I'm butchering your name. Oh, thank you. Well, believing in myself is something I'm working on. It's a process, so I will work on it, and I appreciate that. That makes me feel good. Yeah, I'm gonna sign off here, guys, and then I will upload this to YouTube. It might take a while because it's an hour-long live stream, but yeah, so thanks, guys, for watching, and I'm probably gonna make this a big thing on Saturdays. All right, bye. Hopefully one day you'll tell me how to pronounce your name correctly, because I feel like I'm butchering it. But yeah, so I'm gonna sign off and go find my hubby, and I hope everyone else has a good day.